You know, what's the real secret sauce behind the world's most successful companies? It's not just their amazing products or their cutting edge tech, it's how they manage their people. So today, we're going to dive into strategic human resource management, which is really the master plan for turning human potential into a serious competitive advantage.
So let me just ask you this. What really separates a company that's just, a pretty good place to work from one that's truly great? Is it the free coffee, a cool office, or are they just getting lucky?
Well, spoiler alert, it isn't luck, and it's definitely not about the snack bar. The real answer is a deliberate, thoughtful plan. It's all about having a strategy for managing an organization's most valuable and, let's be honest, most complex asset, its people.
And that brings us right to our core idea today, strategic human resource management, or SHRM for short. Okay, so what is it? Think of it as the master playbook. It's the whole process of making sure that everything a company does with its people, from who they hire to how they train them to how they pay them, is directly tied to the company's biggest, most important goals.
And this framework right here shows you exactly how it all clicks together. See, it all starts at the very top with the company's main strategy. Like, what are we actually trying to achieve here? That big goal then flows down and dictates all the people-related decisions. When all those HR practices are aligned with that big picture, you get the culture and the performance you need to win. It's a straight line from strategy to results.
So here's how we're going to break this whole thing down. We're essentially going to follow the employee journey. We'll start with how companies find the right people, then we'll look at how they bring them on board and grow that talent. After that, we'll talk about compensation as a strategic tool, and finally, we'll get into how continuous feedback really drives high performance. All right, first up, finding the right people. Because look, it doesn't matter how brilliant your business strategy is if you don't have the right talent in the door to make it happen. Now, companies basically have two main pools to fish from. On one hand, you've got internal recruiting, looking inside the company first. This is awesome for morale, right? It shows your employees that there's a real path for growth, plus it's usually cheaper and faster. On the other hand, external recruiting brings in fresh blood, new ideas, and skills the company might be missing. The best strategies? They usually find a sweet spot using a mix of both. And listen, this isn't just some abstract theory. Take Schneider Electric. By creating an internal talent marketplace, basically making it way easier for their own employees to find new roles inside the company, they saved an estimated, get this, $15 million. That's the real financial power of a smart HR strategy right there. So once you have a pool of candidates, how do you pick the best one? Well, the research on this is crystal clear. Structured interviews are way more effective. Sure, a free-flowing conversation feels more natural, but it's really easy for our own unconscious biases to creep in. Like, hiring someone just because they remind us of ourselves. By asking every single candidate the same job-related questions, you can make a much more objective call. It's about comparing apples to apples. Okay, so you've hired someone amazing. The job's done, right? Huh? Not even close. Now the real work starts, unlocking their full potential through really great onboarding and continuous development. Effective onboarding is so much more than just a day of paperwork. It's a whole process. It means getting the new hire's entire team involved to build those relationships from day one. It means being crystal clear about what's expected of them. And crucially, it is not a one-day event. The best companies see it as a process that can take up to a year, making sure new hires are truly set up for success. And that development, it just doesn't stop after onboarding. It's a continuous cycle. The most strategic companies follow these 5 steps. First, they assess what skills are actually needed. Then, they set clear objectives for what the training should accomplish. They select the right methods, they implement the program, and, this is the part so many forget, they actually evaluate it to see if it worked. It's just this constant loop of getting better. Okay, let's talk about money, but not just money. We're talking about strategic compensation, using pay, incentives, and benefits as a super powerful tool to attract, motivate, and keep the exact people you need to win. Strategic compensation is really a 3-part package. You got your base pay, which gives people stability. Then you have incentives, like bonuses, to drive specific results. And then you have benefits for long-term security. Now, the strategy is all in how you mix these. A sales-heavy company might really lean on incentives, while a company focused on innovation might offer better benefits and stock options to keep people around for the long haul.
Of course, one of the biggest strategic puzzles that managers are trying to solve right now is deciding where work actually gets done. The whole hybrid work model has huge upsides, like better work-life balance and more flexibility, but leaders also worry about the cons. Maybe less collaboration, a weaker connection to the company culture, maybe even a dip in innovation. There's no single right answer here, and figuring this out is a huge part of modern HR strategy.
And that brings us to our final piece of the puzzle. You can hire great people and pay them well. But to build a truly high-performing team, you absolutely need a system for feedback and constant growth.
Man, I love this quote from former GE CEO Jack Welch. It just nails the mindset. Performance management isn't about pointing out flaws. It's about a constant focus on making every single person more valuable to the company and to themselves. It's a strategic must-do. And the way we do this is changing big time. That dreaded annual performance review, yeah, it's on its way out. And why is that? Because feedback that only comes once a year is almost always too little, too late. Companies like Adobe have famously replaced it with a system of frequent check-ins and just continuous, ongoing feedback. It completely transforms the conversation from a judgment into a real coaching session. So the modern approach is really this constant loop. It starts with defining what success actually looks like. No gray areas. Then you monitor and evaluate performance, you review it together through coaching, and then you provide consequences. And hey, consequences isn't a scary word here. It can mean rewards, recognition, or a development plan. And then the cycle just begins all over again, always focused on growth. And when we do evaluate performance, we can use two main types of appraisals. You've got your objective appraisals, which are based on hard data, sales numbers, units produced, that kind of thing. They're pretty straightforward. Then you have subjective appraisals, which are based on a manager's perception of things like attitude or leadership. Now, these are important too, but you have to be really careful with them because they can definitely be influenced by bias. And that brings us full circle, right back to this big picture. The key takeaway is that none of these pieces, recruiting, pay, feedback, they don't exist in a vacuum. They all have to fit together like a puzzle. They have to be consistent with each other, and most importantly, they have to align directly with the overall strategy of the business. That, right there, is what makes HR strategic. So, in the end, it really just boils down to this. Great companies understand that their people are the strategy. The ultimate unbeatable competitive advantage isn't a product or a patent. It's a workforce that is hired, developed, and motivated to go out there and win. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Think about your own workplace. Does it just manage people? Or does it truly treat its people as its most important strategic asset? The answer to that one question says everything.